Hey guys, and happy Valentine's Day, or I guess probably most likely the day after Valentine's Day, because I am currently filming this at 11:30 p.m. on Valentine's Day, the day I was supposed to have a video out, because I forgot that today was Wednesday. I had a snow day yesterday. I totally could have filmed this whole thing then. Did I do that? No. I made it today's problem. In any case, here's a video. My original plan for today was to talk about these guys because this came out yesterday, but something came along and I'm going to do this next week. So you can look forward to a review of the series next week. But today, instead, I want to talk about Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Specifically, I picked this up because I saw two different TikToks where folks were saying, this is Omegaverse. And is it Omegaverse? Kinda, yeah. If you didn't know, in high school, I read almost exclusively urban fantasy and paranormal romance, of which this definitely is one. Werewolf vampire. It's not marriage of convenience. It's political marriage, but also their fated mates, question mark. I'll talk a little bit more about this in one second, but if you didn't know, I read a lot of paranormal romance. So this should be right up my alley, personally. Ha, Ali Hazelwood. Ha, pun. If you're like, I recognize that name, but doesn't she write, STEM romances? Yes, yeah, it's that Ali Hazelwood. And yeah, she's decided to just, like, come out of left field with, with some paranormal romance slash Omegaverse. If you have never heard of the term Omegaverse, you may also have seen it represented places as A/B/O or Alpha, Beta, Omega. It is a phenomenon that stems from fan fiction, and we know that Ali Hazelwood has a background in fan fiction, as her first published book was a rewrite of some Raylo fan fiction. So we know that she has a background there, but Omegaverse is not werewolves per se, but a weird alternate reality where there are secondary genders, or, you know, you have your primary gender, male, female, and then a secondary gender of alpha, beta, or omega. The omegas can be impregnated and the alphas can impregnate. Your first gender does not matter, which is why you see a lot of Omegaverse stuff have Mpreg as a tag. There's no Mpreg in here. She's a lady, he's dude. But he does have something that is kind of exclusive to Omegaverse, which is a knot. An alpha's knot. There's a lot of scenting going on. The fated mates thing comes from Omegaverse. There's no secondary gender, but there is sort of a discussion of, like, alpha versus beta stuff, pack stuff. That is somewhat normal in werewolf things, but knots, I think, have only ever come out of Omegaverse. Maybe alien stuff, but it is not part of traditional werewolf paranormal romance lore. Generally, if you're just going to pick up one of those old school werewolf romance books, they've got pretty regular parts. They don't have these extra wolfy parts. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Bride. The opening of Bride is the wedding scene, or the scene perhaps just before the wedding, where our vampire bride, Misery, is getting ready for her wedding to the alpha of the local werewolf pack. She has never met him. This is completely a political thing. It's like an exchange where she is going into enemy territory and somebody from the werewolf pack is coming into the vampire territory, and they're basically used as collateral, so that if any fights break out, they've got somebody who is high-ranking or important to the people who are high-ranking on enemy lines. Misery is the daughter of one of the high-ranking members of the Vampire Council, and the vampires take their children very seriously because they have really low birth rates. This is not the first time that Misery has been used in this way. She spent most of her childhood among the humans, who have a similar situation with the vampires. where our children get exchanged. She grew up with the humans, and before this happened, she had actually been living as a human, like hiding her vampire nature and living amongst the humans for the past decade or so, until her father called her back to be part of this arranged marriage. There's a weird altercation at the altar where the alpha like boxes her all up against the altar and is sniffing her, which leads her to think that she must smell really awful. And she apologizes for that. Spoiler alert, she does not smell really awful. She's just his fated mate. But does he tell her that? Of course not. Of course not. No, he would never. And thus, hilarity ensues as these two have to live together, and one of them thinks the other one hates them. The other one is just like trying desperately to spend as little time around her as possible because he knows it's going to hurt when she leaves. Because unlike a normal werewolf mating, they would both be mates. She doesn't reciprocate the mating thing as far as he knows. But it's a romance book, so you know they get together in the end. I read this in one sitting, front to back, quite late / early into the day. So like I'm doing this video at almost midnight. I was reading this book until like 5 a.m, I feel like. So I mean, it has that going for it. Definitely one of those like yum 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 consuming, need to get through the story, enjoying it type things. There is a disappearance mystery element. There's all of this political intrigue, both just within the werewolves and then at the greater world at large, between the different entities throughout the world. I feel like for me, this is probably going to land somewhere like 3.54 stars. It was definitely enjoyable. Definitely like a good one. I kind of want this to do really well because maybe it will create a uptick in more paranormal romance books. The like alien and monster romance trend happening from TikTok is also, I think, helping in this case. Because it is my favorite genre of romance. I am a sucker for fated mates. And I just like fantasy romance in this way, where it's mostly our world but with supernatural creatures versus like trying to do a full-on fantasy romantasy book. I tend not to like because it's too hard to create an entirely new world and have a satisfying romance at the same time. It's really hard to pull that off. I do feel like some of my enjoyment was taken a little bit away with this one because of the withheld information trope. It wasn't a miscommunication. He fully just doesn't communicate to her who she is to him or like how that would affect their relationship. But I feel like it's really hard to grow an honest relationship with someone when they are not forthright about how they feel about you from the get-go. And they let you believe that you hate them and think that they're smelly and are just there as a burden, basically. I was honestly surprised at how late in the book the sex scenes showed up because they spend so much time not actually in a relationship. Like, I want to say any sex scene doesn't happen until like the last 100 pages of the book. And when the book, one of the things that I knew about the book was that there was nodding. I was like, this has to be super spicy. Like, it's got to be like really high on the spice. It's not. It's really not. It's just a really slow burn, enemies to lovers, forced proximity story. The way that it ended did leave room for this to become a series or at least have companion novels, and I hope that she does write more because I enjoyed it. I liked her world. I found her characters interesting, and I would like to see how this all shakes out in the end. There were still some like overarching world things that could definitely be tackled in future books. I have not read anything else by Ali Hazelwood. It's my first Ali Hazelwood, and honestly, I probably won't be picking up her previous books because I am not a big contemporary romance person. I find them kind of boring, personally. No offense, Gretchen, who lives for that. But it's just not as interesting for me personally as a reader. I need a little bit more to it. I need something else to capture my attention. But this was something that captured my attention, and I would read more if I had it. Have you guys read anything similar to this that you feel like has really good or more recent paranormal romance books? Because I feel like there hasn't really been a lot except for continuations of some like pretty heavy hitting series that even I was reading when I was in high school. I don't feel like there's been a lot coming out in the paranormal romance genre, but maybe I was just missing it. So if you've read anything similar that you think I would like, send it my way, because I definitely like my paranormal romances. Do we think that because of Omegaverse, more werewolf romances are going to include nodding now than previously did? Let's see. I would be intrigued to see if that has lasting effects on the genre. I hope you guys are having a lovely week. Had a happy Valentine's Day. Gretchen and I have a video for you on Friday, and then I will talk to you again next week. The series, The Investigations of Massa and Pleety. I will talk about that series next week. Hope you guys are having a good time. Talk to you then. Bye.